Welcome to PropTech Pulse, the podcast that takes the pulse of prop technology in multifamily. I'm your host, Shelly Robinson, and each week we'll be diving deep into innovations, challenges, and the future of work in property technology and multifamily. From AI-driven property management to blockchain and real estate, we're here to explore how technology is reshaping the way we live, work, and invest in multifamily communities. Whether you're a property manager, a tech entrepreneur, an executive, or even simply curious about the future of living spaces, PropTech Pulse is your weekly dose of insights and inspiration. So let's sync our rhythms and get on with the show. It's time to take the pulse. Welcome to PropTech Pulse. Today I have Phil Rodgers with me. Phil, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Appreciate you having me.
I've been really looking forward to this conversation since we met at MHC. So I'm glad you were able to make the time and talk about what you're working on today.
Awesome. Yeah, my hair, this was all brown a couple months ago. No, I appreciate that. One of the things to kind of give a little background about myself and where I've come from. So, being an Iowa farm boy growing up back in, and having a parent that tells you got to get up at 5:30 in the morning before you go to school and have that work ethic. It was one of the things that basically pushed me into understanding how to be more successful long-term, right? Educating me and getting me introduced to the farmers that talk a lot and getting into that sales aspect world. And then I became a teacher and a coach, which having a sales background and mentality, and then you get into the teaching and coaching. I taught Algebra 1, so I truly was a teacher, wasn't just a coach. Really helped me get into understanding in the business world, how do you lead others to be successful? And that was my biggest focus of getting in here, understanding the needs, not only for my team, but also in an industry, whatever industry that was that I got into, digging in. What's the strengths? What's the weaknesses? What's the problems? And how do we solve the problems? But also focus on things that are going well and how do you make it better? Same with individuals. And so I started in the multifamily industry in 2007. A good friend of mine, Mark Case, who recently passed away, he helped me get into this industry. And, he always, I was called coach. That was one of the things I was called all the time, still get called coach. But I didn't know anything about multifamily. I didn't know anything about technology. And so I dug in and I found probably one of the most exciting industries that I've ever been part of. And I know people say once you're in, you can't get out. And it's true.
It's so true.
And it's about friendship. It's the relationships that are built. It is truly a relationship focused industry. And I've worked with RealPage. I worked with Yardi. I worked with AMSI, yes, even, that still exists.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right? And then I started getting into this, I would say kind of as my wife would call it, a sickness in startups. So I started working with Resman when Resman had 4,900 units and helped build that. Went to a company called SitePlan that had 4,200 units and helped build that. And then I went to a company called Inhabit IQ, which has 38 software companies across the world in multifamily and hospitality, or I guess short-term rentals and commercial. And I did that for about 5.5 years. And then a good friend of mine, Kevin George, who I've known for years since Info Tycoon, he brought this opportunity up about REOps. And he said, hey, this is the concept. And he used the term marketplace, which I almost threw up and hung up because I know what's out there today. I was like, please tell me there's more to this conversation than that. So when we started understanding the challenges of the industry and this lack of standardization at the properties with the products and the inefficiencies of trying to find availability of that product, how do you find better pricing with the economy being the way it is and rents not increasing like they were, they've stabilized, and in some places they've actually went down. So we have to look at the bottom line. And when I decided to make the role, I told Kevin, I said, this is probably one of the only technology solutions that I've seen that it is a hard return on investment. Like I can positively impact the bottom line. It's not one of these that I'm going to save you time. I'm going to save you time. It's true bottom line technology. And so that's where I've been here for a little over 2 years. I joined CEO in December of 2022, and we continue this journey.
I love your story. I really resonate. I'm a Midwest girl too, and I think that work ethic, especially in the Midwest is ingrained, that hard work. My first job was picking blueberries to get jeans. So I can relate to that hard work and getting up and doing what's needed, and then trying to figure out at all costs how to get out of it and do something else. So
There's no way to get out. Just yeah.
totally true. And I love your story into multifamily as well. And I think that resonates with a lot of people I know in the industry too. We end up in it almost by accident. And then we don't leave because it's such a great group of people. And it's a giant industry, but it's really a family. So
it is. Absolutely.
And I want to talk more about what you're working on, especially in this NOI compression environment. And I'm going to ask everybody to stay around until the end of the podcast, because we're going to kind of talk about a couple exciting announcements that are coming up for you and for us. So to kick it off and kind of get us into the thick of the podcast, I always ask kind of future in a bottle questions. And what do you think are the top 3 things that you see changing in multifamily and PropTech in the next 5 years, and kind of why?
And I love that question, because I think we have to, you have to embrace what's ahead, right? We sometimes, and we've all talked about this, multifamily, well, we're 5 years or 10 years behind the times. And in some parts of the country, we are maybe even further. But we have to look at technology. We have to look at how are we going to allow certain automation to come in and offset shortages or deficiencies, right? And let's think of maintenance today. Back in the day, it was one maintenance professional for every 100 units. Now the statistic is one for every 170, but we're asking them to do the exact same thing they were doing back then. Work orders, inspections, turns, heaven forbid, preventative maintenance, all of this stuff. And yet at the end of the day, when we look at resident satisfaction, everything comes from the maintenance side specifically. I remember my maintenance technician by name. I could not tell you who my leasing agent was, and nor did I care. It was the ones that I didn't like at the office because I had to pay them a check, and the other ones, my maintenance teams, are the one that took care of me. But we have to look at technology that's going to bridge the gap. So if we're not going, and honestly, I don't see it getting better. If you look at the younger generation, they don't want to go learn a trade, even though there's a beautiful opportunity for a career in maintenance, in multifamily maintenance, but we also don't educate about it. We're not doing a good enough job, even through the associations, we're not doing a good enough job going out and promoting trades and educating them and getting a funnel behind to where we're not at this risk. And when you have, what they say, 40% of all maintenance supervisors in the next 5 to 7 years will be retiring.
Wow.
That's crazy.
That is a giant problem.
So we've got to focus on it.
We're already short. We're already short. Incredibly short.
And we are competing with all of these other industries for the same resources. And so I think when you look at the prop tech that's coming, you're going to have to look at automation in the maintenance side. I mean, first and foremost, and I think that's one of the reasons why, on the procurement side over here, that's one area, just one area that could potentially help them be more successful or be able to spend more time with residents. When I was with Site Plan, we started, I think we paved the way for mobile maintenance. Even back when it was bring your own device policy, still trying to figure things out.
Yeah.
But we have to start getting things to where it's more automated. Technology is great if it's on our phone, but when we get into the AI, the ML side of this, getting technology to do things on behalf, not necessarily the full execution of it, but at least creating something for us to just review and approve and move on.
Yeah.
I think that
take out the manual clicks and just help you get to that decision so that you don't have to go back to the office. You don't have to go hunt and find things. If it's really like 170 units, you've got to create almost like a 50% efficiency for that technician, at least.
That's right. That's right.
That's challenging.
Yeah, and I think anything that we do in the prop tech, so the three things, I mean, first and foremost, we have to look at resident retention.
Yep.
And I hate to say it, I'll probably, not be friends with some people, but, we talk about marketing. At the end of the day, maintenance is marketing. Focus on your maintenance teams. Focus on how do you give better resident satisfaction. And I'll use an example. My mom she's had a horrible experience in this assisted living community. She's, basically independent living. And a woman had drove up with her daughter and her mom, and the daughter was asking my mom, stopped before she went to the leasing office, saying, "Hey, would you recommend this property?" And my
Yeah.
mom goes, "Absolutely not.
Yeah.
They don't do this. They don't do this. They don't do this." And that person did not go to the leasing office. They turned around and left.
Absolutely.
And that's where it starts. It's the most powerful marketing we have.
Many times people ask, maintenance when they drive up to the property, or residents when they drive up to the property. It is that ultimate lasting impression, right? Of it's your experience day to day outside of the sizzle of the website and the sizzle of the trying to close the deal. So I resonate with what you're saying.
And I think if we spent more on the maintenance side and we gave them more opportunity to truly focus on the residents, you don't have to spend as much money on marketing, right? Because they will be your marketing arm. But unfortunately, the way we've been doing it for many, many years is just like, we're just going to continue to throw things against the wall. We're going to have another resident come in, and we turn. But every time we have a turn, how is that negatively impacting our bottom line? And we've got to have technology that is truly focused on assisting resident retention, lower the turns, increase our NOI, because we're in this market where we can't rely on rents to increase our bottom line.
No, it's going to take a while to correct, and even with the supply slowdown, agree with you there. Let's talk a little bit, about optimizing procurement. And to me, I'm thinking about a portfolio I used to run where we would have maintenance guys hunting around trying to find products to replace in, units that were, getting a little bit older, and maybe the parts weren't like for like exactly anymore. So that's like the first thing that comes to my mind as far as efficiency. Does your platform work on those kind of problems?
Absolutely. I think that was one of the big things we saw, is a lack of standardization in our space. I before I even signed up here, I went on property and I went from one unit to another unit, standing there with the property manager, reviewing, just kind of understanding what type of products they put in. And I went to the first unit. It was a nice gooseneck Pfister faucet sitting in the kitchen sink. I'm not even going to go through what the shower heads and everything else. But when I went to the second one, and it was just a standard, I hate to say, like a 1990s Moen faucet, same color, didn't look anything like the other one. And I said, "Was that other unit a premium unit and this is a classic unit, or what?" And he looked at me straight. He goes, I don't know your question." I said, "The two units. This was over here. This is over here. What's the difference?"
Yeah.
"Nothing. They're both the same." And I said, "But why did this one have a nice goose? I mean, if I'm a resident and I have that one, I'm much happier than the one over here."
Yep.
And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Welcome to multifamily." And I go, "Horrible answer."
And talk about a marketing fail, right? In many ways. One, you could mark up the one unit, but then if someone sees the nicer unit and they move into one that's not as nice, then you've got that service recovery that's almost impossible to overcome. It's a nightmare.
It's a horrible. I said, "So let me get this straight. You showed me this unit, but you rented me this unit. I'm already unhappy. So now, from day one, resident satisfaction has dropped. We're going to have to try to get that." I said that. So standardization is one thing, and the problem is it's hard for these maintenance professionals to find the product.
Yes.
We've made it very difficult because this ceiling fan may be the exact same ceiling fan at 3 different suppliers.
Yep.
Each supplier has their own SKU number.
They do.
We don't make it easy. So I have to go shop at multiple ones. It is one product. I should have technology that all I have to say is I need 2 of these. Let technology go out based on corporate saying, here's who you can work with and order from. And it could be based on the supplier, or is it based on price? We've got to get back into the efficiencies of what procurement is really meant to be. And And I know that Adrian and a number of them, Guillermo and everybody's like, it's broken. It is. Procurement's broken. And so that's what we're looking to solve is how do we bring it in to where I can use a mobile phone? I'm in a unit, I'm walking a unit, I'm walking a property. I don't need to write it on a piece of paper and put it back on a whiteboard. And then, Jerry has to go and log on to a computer and order. Efficiency, inefficiency, inefficiency. So that's one of the things we're trying to focus on is how do we solve the broken procurement, make it easier for them to do the right thing, but allow it to be controlled by corporate of what they're buying, standardize the product catalogs down to the property, as well as who I'm actually purchasing it from, and take away the donut vendors. I'm sorry, they're out there. And then they bring us donuts, and what am I going to do? I feel obligated. I got to buy something from them. Well, every time they do it, it negatively impacts corporate because they have negotiated agreements and they have thresholds that have to be met, but yet the properties don't know about it. So
No,
bridging it.
yeah, they don't. Yeah, that is actually, and I'm even thinking like the efficiency it's creating. Talk about reducing frustration and stressed out, overmaxed team members, and many times short-staffed right now. Let's be honest. The staffing situation in our industry, like you were saying, even about the maintenance soups, that trickle-down effect all the way to the techs is got to be compounding. And so you're short, you're running around, you're trying to stay organized, you're trying to keep everybody happy. Having everything on your phone would be a game changer and preset for you.
Right. And not have to go to one to another and say, do you have it? And I asked him, I said, how are you ordering products today?
Yes.
I'm picking up the phone, I'm calling my rep. Okay, well, what happens if you get a hold of your rep and they're driving down the highway?
Yeah.
Rep pulls over on the side of the road to put in an order. Are you serious? They shouldn't be. They should be going to meetings and having meetings and giving service to these. They shouldn't be taking orders. And the suppliers will say the exact same thing. We don't want them taking orders. Or they're going on a website and they're shopping. And the potential of them ordering the wrong product because they're shopping and nothing's standardized significantly increases, which negatively impacts everybody in the ecosystem. And then the last thing is they get in their truck, they go to Home Depot or Lowe's, and they go shopping, right? And that's not 15 minutes. We all know that, shiny objects everywhere. But that puts financial risk on the property because if they get into an accident, the property's liable. There's at least an hour of wasted time that residents aren't getting work orders done or something happened at the property. And I hate to say this, but it happens. Sometimes they will buy a product that they need for home and they add it in the same cart, but nobody ever sees the invoice and dissects the invoice at a property or a corporate. They don't know. They just pay invoice. And it helps eliminate all of that. If you can just
you end up hearing about the invoice during your variance report review when it's 45 days too late and you're getting scolded by your asset manager when you're the regional property manager. That's usually what happens there. So I love that.
You're asking for forgiveness rather than permission. Let's ask for permission.
Totally. It's so true. I love that. Well, let's get into implementing and change and being successful. And you and I chatted about this a little bit beforehand and service. Can you kind of share a case study of a PropTech implementation for you that really improved operations? And then how do you approach that as, because you're really a change agent with what you're doing. It's completely different. How are you approaching that and providing that service to your clients?
Yeah, I'm not necessarily just going to talk about REOps. I'm going to talk about it as a whole. I think one of the biggest things that we looked at, even with my former company at Inhabit, there was a company called Valence Docs. And we created a platform called Lease File Audit. And over the years, and everybody that's ever done an audit for leases can attest that this is one of the most painful things because I'm looking at a spreadsheet and I'm looking at individual leases and I'm going item by item and saying, does the rent match? Does the deposit match? Does this?
I remember.
Hours, right? It's like days and hours. And Not that you would ever miss anything, because, seeing
Oh no, never.
and so when I was looking at this, and I go, hold on a second, think about all, like, the pet fees, garage fees, all of these things that could potentially change throughout the entire lease. And how are we auditing to make sure that we're capturing all of the potential revenue that's here that we should be getting, but for whatever reason, it's not in Yardi. It's
Yeah.
on my lease, but it's not in Yardi. And when we implemented this, in one case, just from pet fees that were being missed, over $400 a month, one property was missing pet fees. And I said, with cap rates being the way they are, right? Let's think, we've got to get into the thinking and educating our properties to understand what is the value of every dollar that we can potentially save on the bottom line. Right? And we don't. We just, well, they don't want to know. Okay, but if we're looking at our future, why not educate them and get it right in front of their face that $400 with a 5 cap rate equals X amount of asset value increase? And so we implemented this on a property early on, and the eyes just, they're like, you got to be kidding me. I thought it matched. I'm like, well, it should. Well, it's integrated. It's fully integrated. Yeah, what does that mean? And in one property, between all of the fees, we captured over $1,200 in monthly fees that were not, and those are ancillary fees.
Oh yeah.
And we caught, in some cases, security deposit theft. And you don't know.
I had that when I first moved out here to California, my first property. I had an embezzler for an assistant property manager.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. It happens, right?
It does.
And people get really creative sometimes in how they make it look okay.
I wish all these people that go on and do cyber attacks and people like this, if they use that brain for good rather than we'd be great.
We'd all be great.
But that was one of the things that everything that we continue to build, and the only thing I really want to be part of is a true case study where we're positively impact. Like, it is not a soft return on investment. It's not a soft increase to your bottom line. It is a hard fact. And we need to educate them from top to bottom, because when you do that, it starts making people think better. But technology is the way. We got to get out of the manual processes, period. And those that are building technology today, stop building widgets, start building innovation.
It's the theme I heard at RecCon last week was simplification. Like, everybody has this fatigue around complicated usability, manual clicks. If I want to post a rent check, it's 10 clicks, and it's everybody's looking for things that actually and I hate using the word transform, but really simplify the workflow through automation in a way that makes their job easier so they can have that time. We're talking about real hard returns. Everybody's running lean. So if everybody's running lean, they need a real hard return on their time as well. Do you find on the implementation side that there's any best practices in working with organizations that make that adoption phase more successful? Anything that you're seeing that really makes a difference?
I think one of the questions that you and I talked about earlier is, like, what's the biggest challenge of adopting new technology? You and I both know, and everybody that will ever listen to this, that when it's our idea, it's a great idea. Let's just put it that way, right? But if it was your idea and you're telling me that I have to do this, I'm not going to be as excited about implementing, right? And that's where I think we fail in sales as a whole, is we're surface. We're very surface, and we have, we're top down or we're bottom up. No, you should be full ecosystem.
Yeah.
You've got to get the buy-in from everybody and understand. So one of the things that I shared on another one is, and there was a gentleman that I worked with at AMSI, and he was a leader over there. Alan Cohen is his name, and a phenomenal human being. And I will never forget, he was always asking me, he had these acronyms of, what's the DBO? And I'm like, I don't even understand what you mean by DBO. What do you mean by DBO?
What's that?
He's
Yeah.
like, what's their desired business outcome?
Mm-hmm.
And I go, what? He goes, everybody from corporate to your property manager to your maintenance technician everybody has a desired business outcome for what they're looking for if I'm implementing something new.
Yeah.
And we don't go that deep. I'm working with Ted over here or Gina, and Gina's going to push it down. And then we wonder why adoption is so bad, because they're fighting it, because we on the vendor side did not do our job and kind of force the issue. And then a lot of it starts with discovery.
Mm-hmm.
And when we used to talk about discovery, people was like, well, I do that during the demo. How do you know what you're demoing if you don't know what the problems are and how you're solving it?
Yeah.
But we don't. We just jump into it. We sell it. We high five each other. And then we rely on operations and support to make it all happen. And that's wrong. And so it's really getting everybody to buy in at every single level and understand. But the second one is you've got to understand what that value is, like hard value for each and every single one of them. And then when you have your team, consistently work with them on a regular basis. Don't just come in, take them to the altar and leave them. But this is a marriage, long-term work. But when they start doing this over and over and over again, it becomes their normal.
Right.
Right. And that's when you start getting adoption. But sometimes we stop too early. And, even in my space, people are using a supplier that even though that supplier may be the most expensive supplier out there, it's just normal for them to go log into this computer and do a quick order and click submit. But corporate is like, wait a second, I could have saved this amount of money over here with the exact same products with this other supplier. But they didn't do it because it's not normal to them. So we've got to get to normalcy. And that's repetition, repetition, repetition.
Yep, it is. It's getting that desire. This was a conversation I had last week at RecCon too, is I've always felt that property managers are the CEOs of their properties. And I don't think we treat them that way necessarily. Through the years in my experience, I've had different ownership groups. Some of them really do, right? You got to treat those property managers, those maintenance supervisors as business leaders, business managers, and treat them in that way. And I'm not sure we do enough in the industry to really explain the why and the buy-in. If it is saving money, what does that really mean, right? It goes back to that education of what's in it for them. Is it aligned for them? And how does it make their life better?
I think you and I, we've all experienced it. So you have influencers, you have decision makers. And a lot of times when they say, hey, we're a bottom-up approach, we're going to talk to the properties, we're going to work with the properties, and then we get a regional that's excited about it. But yet, because I'll go back to, it wasn't my idea. So I have a C-suite up here that wasn't their idea. And it's constantly forcing it up, and they're pushing back because, well, they weren't involved. They didn't see the value. They weren't brought into the value. And that's where it becomes, well, my adoption across the portfolio is small. But they're missing out on it. And then again, if you go to the corporate level and that's all the relationship you're focusing on. And again, Erica comes in and says, hey, we're implementing this across all of our properties.
Yeah.
And the properties are like, seriously, one more thing?
Oh, totally. Did you even ask what already is on my plate? And then marketing it or selling it to the day-to-day users requires what's in it for them. And it's there's such different business needs and outcomes in a single solution too, right? The decision maker wants good reporting. He wants to know, or she wants to know what's in it from a reporting aspect because they want something quick, easy, and efficient. But that's very different than the technician on his mobile phone who's just trying to get a solution or a product or a service scheduled and delivered in a way that helps them get their job done.
Right. Yep. Agreed. And we just got to do a better job. You're going to hear, every time I talk, it's partners, right? I don't believe in customer-vendor relationships. That's pointing fingers at each other.
I love it.
We go into everything as a partner. Whether I'm a partner with a property management company, I'm a partner with a supplier or service provider, at the end of the day, we're all going to make mistakes.
Absolutely.
But if you go into this as this is a partnership and you work together as partners, and this is what I tell on the management company side, we will be partners in this. And when you do that, you're going to have a solution that you are proud to use, not have to use.
Yeah.
And that's a difference.
Huge. Raving fans from treating them like a partner, making things right. I have a question. Any bold predictions for multifamily in the next 10 years from your purview?
Ooh, I prediction wise, I think I think this is where, yes, AI is going to definitely come into play.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about that. To what level? And this is the one fun thing about the term AI. What does it mean?
Yeah.
Right? It's like in my space.
Nothing sometimes.
it's like a really cool term, A
Yeah.
and I.
Yeah.
But it's like centralization in our space. We're getting into centralization. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Like centralization at leasing, centralization at operations, centralization at maintenance. It means something different to all. It really does.
It absolutely, and it's very custom based on size, scope. It's really trying to figure out the next model of operations in multifamily. That's really like, where is it going based on where the technology's at? And that's going to be a constant forever now.
What I would like to see, this is what I'm interested in, right? Because we all know things evolve. I mean, it's almost like back in the 80s, what we used to wear in the 80s, some of that stuff's coming back. I'm like, I should have saved all of this, right?
Totally. So, you're there.
Yeah. So we went from very much hands-on, where people wanted to speak with another person. And then we shifted with a generation that says, I don't want to speak with anybody. And so we're just going to go with no leasing agents. It's all virtual. We're going to do all of this. And then I see this younger, like the youngest generation coming in, even my daughter who's 15, they do like to have communication.
They do.
Are we truly looking ahead at what are we needing to do with our future residents?
Yeah.
Or are we just living in the now? And
Yeah.
so that's what's interesting for me. Like in 10 years, I know what people want us to say is, oh, everything's automated and it's all cool. You're going to have a robot coming in and shaking your hand. No, it's not happening. But look at our future residents. Who are this 10 to 18-year-olds right now? What do they want? And we better adapt. Otherwise, we're going to just, what do we always do in most industries? We are not proactive. We are reactive. How about be proactive? Preventative maintenance is a great way.
Oh, absolutely. Oh my gosh.
Sorry.
Preventative maintenance. I love what you're saying too. And my daughter's 18. I always call her like, she's like a vintage classic person with a phone in her hand since way too young. But she's very classic and definitely on the human connection side. So the themes I'm hearing right now is about emotionally intelligent need for AI to adapt to each person's desires. And I think long term, that's going to be interesting to figure out. And it's got to be seamless, and it's not. So.
And I think the more we collect data, like truly, and we talk about PMSs. PMSs they're a necessity, but from a technology perspective, from reporting, we all can agree reporting is subpar, and that's like you were talking business intelligence, where you have these platforms that can really take this data and start projecting things for you to make better business decisions. And I think that's going to be something that's going to be needed.
Help me make the decisions in my role in a strategic way and a quick way without digging for or having to have analysts that sit in a back room trying to get to the data. There's too much of it. I totally, that resonates fully. You have an exciting announcement coming up about your company, don't you?
Yeah, I do. Actually, so again, it's been a long time coming. We've been working hard for 2 years since I came on in December of 2022. We started building our technology from scratch in June 1st of 2023. That's really when it started coming to fruition and having the idea of what we wanted to build, both on products and on services. And so, as holding true to everything that I've ever been part of, building, whether it was Resman or Site Plan or Valence Docs or anything else, everything is for our users, by our users, not by one company that's going to tell us what to do.
Yep.
Everybody runs business different. So we have launched, it's called a Launchpad program. So a Launchpad program allows any company that wants to provide 3 to 7 properties to start off. We don't allow any more in this initial Launchpad program. We're looking for companies that have, again, Class A to Class C to owner manage, fee manage, student, conventional, affordable, properties in Minnesota and Texas and across, because everybody does it differently. But we're offering this. If you want to be part of the Launchpad program, make sure you reach out to us, because we're only allowing a certain amount of companies in this Launchpad program at no cost. At no cost to be able to come in and start building out technology and being the voice of how it should look, feel, function, and get to a point where we're truly affecting a bottom line for your properties with little to no work on your side. Continue doing the same thing you're doing today. Order the products, order your services, but stop the manual process and the madness. So we'd love to have anybody that is interested to reach out.
Oh, what a great program. I love this idea. It's like an incubator in a way, right?
It is. It's fun. I mean, everybody, your vision, even from a dashboard, you'd say, hey, I would love to see this on my dashboard. I would like to make sure that my management team or maintenance teams, they see this. Or how do I automate this process when I get into scheduled orders and I don't have to worry about it?
Yeah.
What does that look like? And not just the idea, but where does it start and where does it end? And I tell my developers all the time, listen, it's for our users, by our users, not by developers that have never lived their life.
I love it. Super smart. This has been a fantastic conversation. I'll be sure to put your LinkedIn into the post when it goes live from our conversation. And I think this has been really good today, and appreciate your time, Phil.
Well, thanks for having me. I enjoy it. Look forward to seeing you at the next conference.
And I'll look forward to checking in with you again in a year or two and see how things are going.
Yes, ma'am. Have a great one.
And that wraps up another episode of PropTech Pulse. I hope this conversation has given you valuable insights and perhaps even sparked some ideas for your own PropTech journey. Remember, the future of multifamily is being written right now with every technological advance and innovative solution. So stay curious, stay connected, and keep your finger on the pulse of PropTech. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to PropTech Pulse on your favorite podcast platform and share this along with your colleagues. You can also find us on social media for bite-sized insights and updates. I'm Shelley Robinson, and until next time, let's keep innovating, disrupting, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible in PropTech and multifamily. Let's build it together.